Hey, guys.
James, you've gotten a chance to see Abuka over on the other side quite a few times now, but Smith is kind of the new one who's been performing really well. What's kind of your scouting report of those two guys?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got one who's a veteran who's been playing for a long time, making a ton of plays, experienced player, confident player, very, very good player who'll play for a long time. And then obviously a freshman who we're aware of and knew from high school, recruited at high school, number one wide receiver in the country, number one player in the country. And since he's arrived on campus, he's backed it up. So not a whole lot of surprises there, but ton of respect. And obviously they have our attention.
James, sticking with Ohio State, JT2 and Mole faced him last couple of years. What stands out about his game? How do you plan to slow him down?
Yeah, just phenomenal, well-rounded player against the run, against the pass. Multi-talented player, can do a lot of different things. Obviously, his stat sheet against us from 2 years ago was as good of a performance as you could have. So ton of respect for him. Obviously, again, he has our attention. Obviously we've been spending a ton of time of having a plan of how we're going to try to limit his impact in the game.
James, going back to Ohio State's offense, Quinshon Jenkins is a guy you game planned for last season. What makes him difficult to defend, and what differences do you see with him in Ohio State's offense compared to what he was at Ole Miss?
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about anybody but Ohio State, but big, strong, fast, explosive player who can run in between the tackles, but also can run the ball on the perimeter. You can get involved in the passing game. He's been productive in the two best conferences in all of college football, and he has our attention and respect.
James, is the game plan still to be a game time decision for Drew, and how has he dealt with preparing to talk to quarterbacks this week?
Yeah, at this stage, no new information for you guys. Game time decisions, but so far so good, and getting both Bo and Drew a ton of reps in practice.
James, you mentioned on Monday that Anthony Donko is kind of learning what he can and can't play through. Where's he at in that process, and how do you kind of help someone work through that process?
Well, that's difficult, right? Because anything that deals with medical or health and safety, the doctors and the trainers handle that. But I do think there's some veterans that talk to players and help them with that, because there's a reality in our game that the trainers will decide if you're available or not. And then after that, it's up to the players. And some of that is maturity. Some young players haven't played through some bumps and bruises before, and others have. Some guys, that comes natural to them right away, the ability to do that. And others have to kind of experience it and figure it out and what they're able to do and what they're not. That's a process, and it's different for each one of them, but starts with our medical professionals.
James, obviously this is a huge game. What would this do for the program in general, this game against Ohio State?
Yeah, it's a big game. 1-0. Last week was a big game. Wisconsin, USC was a big game. We recognize this is a big game. We're focused on finding a way to get a W this week against a really good opponent that's ranked highly like we are.
Coach, earlier this week you talked about managing the reps between Grunk and the other two. How does that come along? Do you feel confident if he has to go on Saturday?
Grunk?
Yeah.
Yeah, so here's the deal. If Drew was not able to practice, and you guys were at practice today, if Drew was unable to practice, then Grunk's getting reps. But if you try to get 3 quarterbacks ready, you get 0 quarterbacks ready. So you guys saw Drew was able to take reps today, so the reps have gone between Drew and Bo.
Coach, you talked a little bit at Wisconsin about how what they did with you guys, the punter, in the first half with the field position battle. But on the course of the season so far, how do you feel like you guys have done in the field position department? Is there anything you guys can do differently or better on Saturday and moving forward if you feel like that's an area for improvement?
Well, I think the first thing, as you guys know, is it starts with having a punt returner who's caught a lot of balls in games and returned balls and made plays. And as you know, we've had a little bit of musical chairs there trying to find the guy. Zion's doing some really good things. Clifford is doing some really good things. Some young players are as well. That punter last week was difficult because it was rugby. So not only would he directional kick like everybody does, if you're rolling to your right, you kick to your right, but he would roll to the right and then kick to the left. He'd kick across the field, which is unusual. The one he kicked was a knuckleball, which is difficult. So don't get me wrong. I'd love to field more of those balls and be more aggressive. But most importantly, knock on wood, is we haven't turned the ball over in that category. Now, check that box. Great. Now we gotta take the next step, and we got to be able to start catching more of those and returning more of those. So that'll be a big factor for us. We've had this issue in the past. We found one with Day last year and obviously did extremely well. So we need to do that again, but that's easier said than done. Catching punts is a different skill that not everybody has. And it, that's a very, very important job that you spend a lot of time trying to figure out who the right guy is for that position.
Do you like noon games as opposed to night games? Is there a advantage or disadvantage for you guys?
I love the noon games. There's nothing better than a noon game in Happy Valley against Ohio State. This place will be rocking. I've seen it all over social media. Our fans could not be more excited. Our alumni, our letterman, Jason Kabinda. We were just talking about that. Marcus, we were just talking about nothing better than a noon game in Happy Valley.
Coach, I know you talk. Excuse me. I know you talk a lot about keeping noise outside. Have you found yourself having to do more work this week to do that, given the magnitude of everything?
Again, that's for us. We just stay consistent with our process. Is there a lot more noise outside? Do we start getting questions like your questions? Yes. Like I said today at the quarterback club, West Virginia to open the season was a big game. Bowling Green was a big game. If you don't think it wasn't, lose to Bowling Green and see how people react. They're all big games. This is a big game because of how we've handled the previous 6. So we don't change our process. I can't control the noise and the things that are outside this building, but we stay consistent with how we go about our business, and I can't control the other things.
James, I think we've asked you about Tyler Warren from every angle, but I'm going to try one more. Going back to his recruitment process, we know about the transition from quarterback. Was there any persuasion that needed to happen from you and the staff for him to kind of divert from that path of being a quarterback to being a tight end?
I don't remember it that way. Obviously, it's a few years ago. I don't remember it that way. I remember him being committed to another school as a quarterback. And then I think I remember him just saying recently that when he made the decision, he wanted to play tight end and was interested in Penn State, he sent us his basketball dunk tape. And then that's when things changed. So I think it started with him saying, I want to go to Penn State and I want to play tight end. And then it was him sending the dunk tape. And I think he said like 5 minutes after sending his dunk tape, we called and said, yeah. And then I don't think it took very long after that. And I think you guys also know pretty cool connection that Trace McSorley's dad played with Tyler Warren's dad at Richmond. They were college teammates, so they knew all about our program through Trace. And then we got another young man committed whose dad played on that same team, which is also pretty cool.
2 more, guys.
James, we've asked you a lot about the helmet communication stuff. Do you feel like you guys have got it ironed out? I know, like, throughout the sport, there's been concerns about it throughout the season. Have you guys had any issues?
Yeah, last week at the end of the game, we lost contact with the booth. So we had no contact with the coordinators at the end of the game. We had no ability to communicate with the quarterbacks and the linebackers on the field. But we've been working on that, coming up with a solution. But that we did have a problem at the end of that game at a very critical moment.
At the very end, or are we talking a big span of the fourth quarter?
If it's one play, it's too many plays.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, James.